Hey there. Well, today's episode is on marketing artificial intelligence. And that sounds like a pretty fancy or nebulous term. But in reality, if you're utilizing marketing automation software, then you're already using artificial intelligence to do pieces of your job. So today we'll talk about common applications of AI for marketing and where the industry is headed as we look into 2021 and beyond. And if you're like me, you're in the midst of marketing planning right now and already looking to future trends to decide how to allocate your budget and different channels that you'll be tapping into next year. So the timing is perfect. Let's do this.
Welcome to Content Marketing Engineered, your source for building trust and generating demand with technical content. Here's your host, Wendy Covey.
Hi, and welcome to Content Marketing Engineered. On each episode, I'll break down an industry trend, challenge, or best practice in marketing to technical audiences. You'll meet colleagues and industry friends of mine who will stop by to tell you their stories. And my goal is that you leave each episode feeling inspired and ready to take action. Before we jump in, I'd like to give a quick shout out to TREW Marketing. TREW is a content marketing agency based in beautiful Austin, Texas, and serves companies focused in technical industries. For more information, visit trewmarketing.com. And now on with our podcast. Well, today I'm here with Paul Roetzer. He's the founder and CEO of the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, and also the founder and CEO of marketing agency PR 2020. Now, Paul, I have read a little bit about what you've written on AI. And one of the reasons I wanted to tap into your expertise today is because of this reading. You said that hundreds that marketers are performing every day will soon be intelligently automated. And also that we're in the infancy of AI adoption. And so I know you've been encouraging marketers to become pioneers and to beat their competition. And that's pretty inspiring to me. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sad we're not doing this in person. It's been too long since we were hanging out at a HubSpot event.
I know. For those of you listening or watching, Paul and I, man, we're buddies. All these HubSpot partner events and different industry events. We're always grabbing a drink and having
years.
fun. And maybe almost a decade, I want to say now.
It's hard to believe, but it's probably true.
Not to age us.
We're not old enough.
No, definitely not. There's this funny story I was thinking about. I think we were on a bus and we were on our way to one of these HubSpot partner events. And you told me the funniest story about a Halloween costume. So
Halloween costume is...
So those of you listening that can't see Paul or you don't know what Paul looks like, he has an uncanny resemblance to the former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan.
Oh yeah, I know where you're going with this now.
So what did you do that Halloween?
No, so one of my coworkers, who also is a relative, showed up at the agency Halloween party as Secret Service and pretended to follow me around. Did follow me around all night. I was not dressed up as Paul Ryan. I was just me.
Oh, I didn't even realize that part.
No, but he just showed up as my Secret Service detail and followed me around. And that was at the time where Paul Ryan was in the news everywhere. No matter where I traveled, people thought I was actually him. Wouldn't believe me if I would say no in Boston, New York. Didn't matter where I went. So it was very top of mind at the time. And so it was a very well done. And he stayed in character all night. He had a Harry Potter wand as his weapon. It was classic Keith. It was really funny.
Oh, that is classic Keith. And so did you ever take pictures with people who thought you were the real thing just for fun?
I can't tell this exact story, but there was a conference in Vegas where we were out with a group of people and one of the ladies called her husband on FaceTime and convinced him that she was out to dinner with Paul Ryan.
Awesome.
Which led to a whole nother conversation. But that's probably like the craziest of all of them because he believed her.
Hopefully no restraining orders were issued.
It ended up okay. But
okay, good.
I'm just really glad he's out of the public eye these days.
Oh, man. All right. I guess so. All right. Well, let's start with a super easy softball question. Get you warmed up here. What is artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's actually one that I spent years trying to arrive at a definition I was comfortable with. So when people hear artificial intelligence, they immediately think sci-fi. They start to think about the movies like Ex Machina, or think about Westworld, or all these places where we see this really intelligent, sentient being or machine that can do everything humans can do, but at superhuman levels. And that's not what it is. That's not where we're at. So the best definition I've found is from a guy named demystify, who's the founder of DeepMind, which was acquired by Google years ago. And he says that AI is the science of making machines smart. And what he means by that is machines, being like computers, software, hardware, they have no innate abilities on their own. Everything they do, they're programmed to do. So some programmer writes rules that tells the machine what to do, and then the machine doesn't improve unless it's taught how to improve, unless the programmer writes better code. With AI, though, the machine actually develops an ability to learn. So it actually can improve what it does, and it develops some human-like abilities, specifically of language and vision are the two main areas we see this. So if you think about your phone, all the ways that artificial intelligence is infused into what you do every day with your phone, from when you unlock it with your face, it's using facial recognition, to when you talk to Siri or to Alexa, it's using voice recognition and natural language processing. These are all things that machines can't do on their own. So it's simply this kind of umbrella term of tools and technologies that make machines smart. It gives them human-like abilities to do things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do. And we'll unpack that and what does that actually mean in marketing, watch a bunch of use cases, but science of making machines smart because they really are not smart on their own is the simplest way to think about it.
No Westworld today. Okay, good, good contrast. So then let's go ahead. Let's apply that to marketing. Just typical applications used by most marketers today. What would they be?
So anything that's data-driven and repetitive would be one area. And then the second main area we look at is anywhere where you're trying to make a prediction, where data should be used to make that prediction. So what that means is, like, let's look at some very specific examples. So if I want to develop social media shares and I've got a blog post and I'm going to go through that post and I'm going to figure out what excerpts am I going to take out to turn into 5 tweets, what hashtag do I want to use, when do I want to schedule them, what image should I use? All of these decisions are made. And at the end of the day, every single one of those, you're trying to decide what is most likely to get someone to click on social media share. So that's an example of this repetitive data-driven process that really humans aren't that great at. Another would be managing ad spend. So I've got $1 million or $10,000, whatever it is to spend, like 100,000 places I could put that money. Where should I actually put it? And then how do I monitor performance? Content creation is another one. What subject line should I use in an email? What blog post title should I use? What questions should I? All of these things are things that as marketers, we're constantly doing that machines do really, really well. So again, data-driven, repetitive. Are you making a prediction? Those are kind of the 3 criteria that tell us we may have a great use case for AI.
Oh, good to know that criteria. The application that jumped into my mind too was lead scoring, right? Yep. So using predictions there based on behavior, based on demographics. So that seems like that meets that criteria very well.
Yeah, and to build on that real quick, because it's a great example, you can build a lead score as a human. You could go, like, we're HubSpot users, you could go into HubSpot and create rules that say, score this person at this if they've been on this page, downloaded this email, or downloaded this ebook, attended this webinar. So you can set those rules, but they never get better unless you change the rules. With AI, it can actually learn and adapt based on conversion data.
I see. So yeah, that's a great contrast too. I understand. So today, if I think about, you mentioned HubSpot. So when I think about as a marketer, okay, I have my marketing automation platform and it seems to serve up some ability to do some of this. So I'm not needing to go hire a programmer or layer on something else. Is that accurate?
The platforms like HubSpot are starting to infuse AI into specific features. So you don't have an entire platform that's AI powered. you build it to do specific things. So HubSpot, for example, does deduplication of contacts. So if you have 40,000 contacts in a database, their system actually tries to find people it thinks are the same person, but they're two contact records. And it'll tell you, we think this person is the same as this person, you should merge them. So that's an example. They also use it to suggest how to improve sales emails. They look at the tone and sentiment and style of an email and recommend ways to improve it. They use image recognition or computer vision to scan business cards. So you could take a picture of a business card, it automatically recognizes all the information in it, much like your bank does with checks. Yeah. But then it automatically also knows how to properly map that into the CRM record. So if you're at a trade show, when we're back at trade shows, you got 100 business cards, you can just take pictures and automatically put them into the system.
Yeah.
So things like that is what HubSpot's been doing.
Gotcha. So extrapolating out then, software companies that serve marketers are all looking towards AI applications to make their platforms more intelligent, more efficient. Would that be an accurate statement that that's the trend you're seeing?
Yes. So the two main things you would use AI for to reduce costs by increasing efficiency, and to accelerate revenue growth by being better at making predictions. Like those are the two main outcomes you're seeking, is revenue acceleration and cost reduction. So if you're a big technology company, you're trying to find ways to build that into your platform. The more innovation you tend to see right now, though, is in venture-funded startups that are tackling very specific use cases. So again, the AI has to be trained to do very narrow things. So like an example would be email subject line writing. So the ability to create emails that are more likely to get open, there are startups that do that. Writing email copy. There's one, Pattern 89, that we use, that you give it 3 versions of creative for Facebook ads, and it runs models to predict which creative you should use before you ever launch it. So it's actually more innovation, again, is happening at an individual startup level than I've seen often with platforms. The platform companies often swoop in and buy the most innovative startups.
I was just about to ask that. Yeah. You took it out of my mouth. Yeah. Seems like there's a lot of innovation happening with chat. And in fact, chat seemed like that was an early on example of utilizing AI to have these online conversations. Tell me a little bit about that technology and where it's headed.
Yeah, everybody assumes, well, a lot of people assume if you hear chatbot, it equals AI. And in many cases, in most cases, it doesn't, in fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of the chatbots we're used to using or interacting with have rules-based branching logic.
It's a good point. There's still someone behind it creating those branches. Yeah.
Yes. So it goes to this whole idea of that human automation. Like it can automate interactions, but oftentimes the human has to actually envision what are all the potential questions that might be asked. And then you write all these rules to say, show them this, respond with that. And so in many cases, chatbots aren't actually using AI. They may be using a small piece called natural language processing to understand the question. But other than that, they're not learning and improving. That being said, a tool like Drift, they've made major investments into AI to where they can actually learn from the content of previous questions. We use a tool called Phrase as what's called a knowledge assistant. It trains itself on all the content on your site. I mean, this is content marketing focused podcast. Like it can take everything you've ever written and it'll learn based on that. And then it actually understands questions. And so the human training time is dramatically accelerated because there's actually AI infused in all aspects of how that knowledge assistant works and learns, and then how it improves over time.
Okay. How can AI help content marketers plan their content and optimize for search?
There's lots of different tools to do it. So we use MarketMuse in particular. So what MarketMuse does is they analyze the content on your site, and then it actually considers the domain strength of your site. So, it's everyone can go look for keywords and say, oh, the competitiveness is this, and pick those keywords. That doesn't really do much good. What you need to know is what's the likelihood that my site can rank for that keyword, though, not every site out there.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. So they take domain strength into account. And then what they do is build these kind of probability scores of the content you already have, what opportunities exist to improve it. And then their system will actually go through and recommend how to improve it. So let's say you have an 800-word blog post on content marketing for engineers.
I'm sure that I do.
Yeah, probably somewhere you do. And in there, you may do it like a ask and answer style. So like, what should I be writing about? How frequently should I publish? What Market Muse will do is it'll actually look at other content and it'll say, here are 3 other questions you should be answering within this post. And so what you do is you actually go through and enhance content that's already there, that's been identified with their system as having a higher probability of helping you rank higher. And then they actually have a tool where you can then develop a creative brief to recommend what to put into there. And you can actually even use their tool to develop a draft of that copy. So in their case, they've built AI to do like 4 or 5 specific things, but together it does exactly what you laid out to start with. How do I create more content that ranks better to help us grow our business?
Yeah. And what an interesting example of taking a niche, I guess, activity or set of activities and applying AI together comprehensively. Yep. So very cool. So what do you think? Why aren't marketers leaning into AI? Why does this seem like a standoffish thing? I have some theories on this. But
I'd love to hear your theories.
Well, I think one, just for starters, I feel like, it's for large companies. I need a massive website, a massive budget. This isn't for, a small or medium-sized business.
That's a very good assumption. I think that is definitely one. I think that it's too abstract is the other. And I think we also run into the challenges of what people perceive AI to be, that it is this sci-fi thing. It's not a tangible, technology that can be applied. So we're actually right now doing a state of the industry survey with Drift. We've teamed up with them to try and answer this question. My hypothesis is that there's a lack of understanding of AI and therefore there's a lack of adoption. Because if marketers actually understood what it was and that it's not that complex, that it's actually pretty fundamental, few fundamental principles that if you understand, you get that, okay, that I already buy software to do content. I buy software to do social. I buy software to do email. You're telling me there are smarter tools that'll help me be a better marketer. They'll learn, they'll improve. I'll improve because they improve. Like, why would I not want to know that exists and what those are and how to buy them? So that's where we're trying to move the market to demand smarter technology. That as a marketer, anything you do in the back of your mind, you should be thinking, can I buy a smarter tool to do this? Is there a smarter way to do this? And almost remove the AI, machine learning, deep learning lingo out of it. Yeah. And just look for smarter solutions.
It's not the how, it's the what. Yeah. What are you trying to solve?
You're doing it to save money and increase revenue. And there's better ways to do it.
Well, also, I think 2 dynamics that I see is one, we like to believe in this all-in-one dream, right? That we can use one platform that does everything and you don't have to have this software for this and this for that. But we're past those days, right? Yeah. As MarTech has become more and more sophisticated, you do have to use more tools. So I think that's maybe one, at least for now, that isn't the dream. And maybe one day again, things will, come back together.
Well, and I think that's why companies like HubSpot have tried to focus on the open ecosystem. HubSpot obviously has made big improvements in recent years. It's like they acknowledge you can't build the best tools for everything. So you focus on your core competencies, which keep broadening over time. But in the reality, you may need hundreds of tools that can plug into your solution. And AI is just going to accelerate the need for that.
Yeah, I see that. So the other one is, as a marketer or CEO of a marketing company, I'm inundated by tools providers that I haven't heard of, and where do you give your time to? And so I think it's wonderful that you're doing so much education and shortcutting recommendations in some instances, because it's just, I don't want to have software sales meetings all day long. And that's what it feels like. So it kind of goes back to what you said of identify where you could get the most bang. What is the problem statement? Where can you work more efficiently, get more dollars, focus in that area, and then go do your research.
Yep. Yeah. That's the 2 ways we tell people to think about AI. One is a problem-based model where you have a consistent business problem that you can assign a value to solving if there's a smarter way to solve it. And so you go in under the assumption that AI might be able to help, but you tackle it from a business problem standpoint.
I see.
The other is a use case standpoint, where you look and say, I come up with subject lines or topics for blog posts 10 hours a month. If I could spend 1 hour a month instead, that would be awesome. Let me go find a tool to do that.
Yeah. And then there's a selling point that has to be made to executives on budgets, because I'm sitting here envisioning that pie of spend. And obviously, through this conversation, we're advocating a larger piece of the pie towards technology. But what's shrinking in order to make room for it? And it sounds like you're saying it's people's time, is one of them.
Yeah, in theory, again, if one of the goals is cost reduction, you go into this looking and saying, okay, my cost is going to be this, but I'll save the time or money in some other spot.
Yeah. And the performance, perhaps it looks a little different. The whole pie is bigger,
Yeah.
maybe more investment.
Yep.
Well, speaking of pie charts, 2021 marketing planning is upon us right now. Obviously, you guys are deep in that, as are we. So what specific trends do you see in AI next year?
The thing that I'm kind of hot on right now is language generation. So I mentioned earlier, the main buckets we look at for AI are language, vision, and prediction. And so underneath those are all these different applications and use cases. But there's been some major advancements in the ability of machines to, for lack of a better term, write content. So for me, I'm a journalism major. Like I came out of journalism school, and our agency are largely storytellers. It's what we do for clients. We tell stories to generate leads and convert customers. So back in 2015, it was one of the primary use cases I looked at is, can AI write articles? Can it write blog posts? And back then the answer was no, but that answer has changed. Yeah, and so I've seen a lot of tools popping up that are taking advantage of some innovations that came through in the last 12 months to actually start generating content on its own. Now, the humans in theory should be editing it, but that won't be happening in a lot of cases. But that's going to be a problem and an opportunity, is the flood of machine generated content. And deepfakes, which is a whole nother podcast topic.
Boy. Yeah. Let's not go there today.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to learn, obviously, and we're only scratching the surface today. And so that leads me to want to talk to you a little bit about something pretty exciting you recently launched, which is your online education platform, which is called the AI Academy for Marketers. So what is it, and why is right now the time that you decided to launch? Or not literally right now, but recently.
Yeah, recently. So the plan all along, if you go back to 2015, 2016, when I first started publicly speaking about AI, and then we started the blog about it, we wanted to make it make sense to marketers. We wanted to be approachable and actionable, and now accessible was sort of the other thing we added to that. And so the thinking was, we started with an event business in 2019. We had our first Marketing AI conference. The plan was to introduce online education on the second day of the conference this year. So as we all know, this year hasn't exactly worked out to plan for everybody. So in the first week of March, when I decided that we were going to cancel our July conference, so this is before everything got shut down, but I just made the decision we were going to do it. We had already had people buy tickets to our conference. So I was like, well, once we finalize the deal with the convention center to move this conference to next year, we need to be able to tell people, you can transfer what you've already paid to this other thing. Like, we needed to create this other thing. Yeah. So luckily I had done all the research. We had all the general plans of what it would be. And so I just didn't sleep for 48 hours. And in that 48-hour time period, we built the entire online business model, basically. Wow. And then the site was live 10 days later. So
10 days, Paul? Yeah. So because you had the material already built elsewhere, obviously.
No, it was the Tesla model. Sell it before you have it. So so what we did is we had 30 or 40 speakers committed to MACON in July 2020. I see. So we immediately, once I decided on the business model, how we would do online education and what the learning management system would be and that stuff, we reached out to them and said, listen, instead of coming to Cleveland, we'd love for you to teach an online course. Now, it's going to be a course. It's not going to be a webinar for 45 minutes. So there's going to be different requirements, and it's going to take more time.
Yeah.
But you don't have to travel. You don't have to come. Like at the end of the day, it's probably going to be less time commitment. So we were lucky enough to already have a bunch of amazing people who were going to be coming speaking, and they agreed in large part, the vast majority of them, to create online courses instead.
Wonderful.
So we quickly got sign off from them. And I think by 3 weeks later, somewhere in that range, we had 20 some instructors to create the content. And then they all agreed to create it over a 6-week period so that we could actually launch the online education platform the day we would have been at MACON in July.
Nice.
So we still timed
That's a big sprint. 6 weeks.
It was crazy. I can't believe we actually survived that in the middle of the pandemic too. Like, you're home with your kids running around and people are trying to film, not to mention we did 5 certification courses. So some of them are like 4 or 5 hours of content.
Yeah.
So I personally did 3 short courses, 10 quick take videos, and a certification course in like 5 weeks.
Wow. I didn't sleep much.
No, it was crazy.
And people were recording from their home offices, I take it?
We had 20 some page brief of how to record and what to use and what, file formats. And our team was incredible. Like, it's sometimes just, you have a deadline and you're going to figure out how to do it. And our team just stepped up and did incredible work and pulled it all together somehow.
Okay. Well, I see that it is a subscription model. So I'm wondering, as you move forward, assuming that you will have MACON eventually come back, hopefully.
Well, next 2021 will most likely be virtual at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you make your content decisions over, you have a blog, you've started a podcast soon here, or are starting a podcast, you have the paid training, the in-person, do you have a matrix of some sort of criteria you use to define what content, or maybe it's a form factor question of what goes where?
I want to say I have this like super sophisticated process just to be like impress you. It's we do have systems. I will say that we do largely think about the end user and what are the questions they have. So as you alluded to up front, most of our audience are still beginner level. They're trying most marketers are still beginner level. And we have data to tell us that they're trying to just understand terminology, use cases, technologies. They're not even at the stage necessarily where they're trying to pilot it. They're just trying to make a business case for it or convince themselves of its potential. So we do a lot of education around, we believe people self-identify with the category of marketing that they spend most of their time. So I'm a content marketer, I'm an email marketer, I'm a paid media specialist. So we create tons of content around AI for social, AI for content. And then we carry that through into the online courses, the sessions at the conference, the guides we'll, publish. We try and take it to the individual to make it as approachable for them as possible. So again, it's like, well, I'm a content marketer, keep hearing AI. There's something that says 10 things I need to know about AI as a content marketer. Okay, great. So we try and bring them in through that. And then we use different tools to basically predict what kind of information they'll need and where they're at.
You do. Is some of it AI? No.
Not yet. It's
it's coming.
It's designed to eventually use machine learning to be able to recommend. So if you were to join Academy, we could actually recommend a learning path for you based on everything we know about you.
Great. And of course, what you described is your typical persona-based buyer's journey. So for all those different types of flavors of marketer, if you will. So thank you for letting us get in your head a little bit. I think it's all interesting too about the way you're packaging your content within that academy. So for those that are interested in checking it out to understand that it has that granularity included in your curriculum is interesting. So good. Well, so you'll probably be virtual. So it sounds like an actual virtual conference in addition to the training is probably in store for you in 2021 for MACON.
So we were holding out hope that by July, which is when we have the convention center booked for, that was the plan, that it would be open and we could have a conference. And obviously each day and week that passes, I'm not confident that conferences will be really anywhere in the US by July of next year at any scale.
Nor am I.
So Yeah, I mean, I think it's just being realistic that it's likely it would be a virtual event. And then what we're looking at is trying to be consider in-person events, potentially smaller in select geographic regions, latter half of 2021. And we'll just play it by ear and see how the year goes. But those you can kind of spin up faster and say, okay, let's go have a meetup at 100 people, in Boston or Austin or wherever it may be. So we're keeping our options open for how to handle the event next year, as everybody is at this point.
Well, come on to Austin. We'll grab a drink.
I'd love to be back there. I mean, I came to South by Southwest for like 8 straight years, and some of my favorite professional memories and lack of memories are from the weeks I spent in Austin.
That's Austin. Well, Paul, for those listening, where can they go to learn more and connect with you?
marketingaiinstitute.com is the home of most of what we've been talking about today. That's where the blog and the newsletter are for AI, and tons of free education, as well as the Academy, which is, as you mentioned, a paid membership. And then pr2020.com, because I know some people know us more for our standing with HubSpot as their first partner and the work we've done there. And so that's the other place they can go learn about the agency.
Very good. We'll all include links to those in the show notes and a link to your LinkedIn page as well. So for those that don't know how to spell Roetzer, I'll make it easy on you. And just parting advice for marketers that want to become an AI pioneer.
I think you alluded to it. It's in its infancy. People, again, it's like abstract and it's overwhelming, and you may think, well, I'm just too late to the party. Not even close. Like, it's so early in terms of not only the technology itself, we have product maturity is still young, but I think the application of it is so early, and there's going to be entire new career paths that'll evolve that people aren't coming out of university trained for, existing VPs and CMOs aren't trained for. We just really see this wide open opportunity in the next decade for marketers to really develop whole new skill sets and knowledge bases that can give them just huge advantages in their career and help their companies really stand apart. So I would just encourage people, just take the next step. Go read that one blog post, go sit in one webinar, go get one book. Like, just do yourself a favor and seek some knowledge, be curious, and see where it takes you.
Great advice. So thank you so much for your time today, Paul.
Great to see you.
Visit TREWmarketing.com/podcast for notes and resource links from today's episode. While you're there, learn other ways to grow your business with content marketing, from educational resources such as self-paced training to hands-on services by the expert TREW marketing team. You can also order my book, also named Content Marketing Engineered. Thanks, and have a great day.